No, today's a special guest. It's my good friend Nathan Hawthorne, a former Division I football player, played at Portland State University, a Division I AA school. He's awesome. You're one of my best friends, and I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and so I'm really excited to have you on the show. And I think it's, I've just been jazzed about this for like all week.
Yeah, excited to be here. We've talked about it quite a bit, so
yeah,
finally got some time. Both of us had free. Let's get it on.
First, I want to start with a concept of culture. I think culture really matters in sports. I know you've had experiences on both sides of it, and I know people in the work life. They work in offices where they have a bad culture in their office, and it really, really hurts them. But it's not just stuck in the office and cubicles. It matters in sports too. We look at the Patriots with a great culture. A bad culture can be equally as bad as a good culture can be good in sports. Like for example, if I was going to go play again somewhere in college football, I would choose to go somewhere with a great head coach, a good man that has good culture in place. I think underrated schools like Eastern Washington, Utah, Iowa have great cultures that people don't take account for. What are your thoughts on that? I just think that we don't appreciate enough as athletes or as people who are growing up going to play college football or wherever, the idea of a good culture. What is your opinion on that? Does it matter as much as I'm saying?
I absolutely think it does. As much as having talent for your team matters, and having like a great scheme and whatever the case may be for your program. Yeah. If you don't have culture, none of that is going to get applied. None of that is going to be functional. Because to me, culture is everything. If you have everybody on the same page making the wrong play, that's better than nobody on the same page, each trying to do a different thing.
Let me be clear too. When I say culture, I mean leadership. Yeah. You and I played at rival high schools. It's really fun. We were on national TV together in a game that we will not bring up today. Still grinds my gears. You played at Columbia River High School. Shut up. I played at Skyview High School. We were not the same. You were far more talented than we were, but we were similarly successful teams. But I think if your team, your athletes had gone to my school, they could have won state. Literally, your team is so much more athletic, more talented than us. We had better coaching. And so when I say culture, I mean leadership sets the tone with great culture. Have you, I think, in my opinion, have been a part of some bad cultures in life. What's that like? Is it? I don't want to out anything, but do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, and being a part of a bad culture isn't necessarily a knock on the people around you or the people at the top.
Doesn't mean they're bad people.
No, not by any means. But a culture has to be consistent. It has to be very specific. And it has to be executed. You know what I'm talking about? So if you have, it's easy to have a culture for a couple of days. Like when fall camp just starts, everybody's excited. They're showing up early. They're staying after to get extra things in. Yeah. And that's great. That's great culture, right? You think those concepts are going to hold in. But if you're not doing that on a consistent basis and it gets a couple weeks into the season, people stop showing up. If you're in the film room and instead of being focused and locked in, you're falling asleep. If you don't have, coaches or even other players, honestly, getting on people about, doing those extra small things.
Setting the tone.
Exactly. Then you don't have a consistent culture. You don't have a culture that's going to cultivate wins. Yeah. And that's the same thing you're talking about in the workplace. If you don't have consistent performance or somebody, demanding that consistent performance out of you or demanding more out of you, you're not going to get there. And that's part of it. To me, the biggest thing is getting people to understand the why and what they're doing. And part of a culture is getting players and getting people to understand, why am I doing this? Why am I running the route this way? For me as a receiver, that's a big deal. Why do I have to run the route this way? Why can't I run it this way? You get a coach or a boss, somebody that can explain to you, this is how it has to be done so that the rest of the offense can function. Or as a quarterback, why am I making this read? As an offensive lineman, why are we blocking this scheme? Just things like that. Why? If you can answer the why and you can get players inspired, like they're going to run through a brick wall for you. Oh, yeah. If you give them the why, they'll do anything.
Well, I heard something recently where a guy, I can't remember who it was, someone was talking about what it means to lose a locker room. And when you lose a locker room, it means that the veterans no longer buy in. The older guys, the seniors, the juniors, the 10-year vet in the NFL no longer believes in the coach's message. Yeah. And that means why, it doesn't matter. They don't believe in the coach. Right. I want to read a story to you, and I don't know if this is, I think it's indicative of a bad culture, but I'm going to read a story that happened to Pat McAfee. He's a great broadcaster, former Colts punter. I'm going to read a story to you, and I want your opinion on it.
For the brand.
He's great. I love it, but I can't tell if I look at this and I think there's two sides to this story. I'll read it to you what happened. The Colts had just lost a horrible game to the Steelers. They got blown out really, really badly. And Ryan Grigson, the former Colts general manager, I read the story the other day. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. Okay. Ryan Grigson called Pat McAfee in for a meeting and said, sit down, son, and was very stern and very mad at him. And he said that the reason why the Colts were losing is because of things like what Pat McAfee did. He took a picture in an equipment room, which is a football room technically by the Colts standard, and took an Instagram picture, posted it online. Ryan Grigson took a huge offense, said that you're the reason why we're losing. This isn't okay. You took a picture in a football room. I'm going to fine you a full game check, over $100,000. And basically said, this whole thing, this is why we're losing.
What was the picture of?
It was just Pat McAfee standing on a thing. There was like a thing hanging from the ceiling. I'll put a picture of it on the podcast.
Okay.
Like a WWE commentator holding a thing from the ceiling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's fun, not a big deal. Doesn't distract from anything. And I look at two sides of this going, well, look, I understand why you have a rule. You got to enforce the rule.
Right.
And maybe Pat McAfee wouldn't work in the Patriots culture, but that's not the reason why the Colts were losing to the Steelers.
No.
And when Pat McAfee heard that, he says in an article, this is why I quit the NFL. I realized I was tired of working for leadership I didn't believe in. Yes. And you tell me that we're losing because of this? You're an idiot. You're wasting all of our time. You're finding me money I don't deserve.
Yeah.
It's just stupid. And the last part I want to mention is as Pat McAfee walks out of the office, Ryan Grigson, the guy who got fired. By the way, Ryan Grigson was not a good general manager. He really ruined the Colts roster before John Ballard came in. Chris Ballard, excuse me.
Yep.
But he said as he's leaving, Ryan Grigson goes, get out of my office. And he's already like out the door and he says, already gone. Just petty.
Right.
Am I wrong? Is that indicative of bad culture?
That's indicative of a culture in panic when you don't have an identity. And like you said, you've lost the locker room.
Yeah.
And when you lose the locker room, players they don't understand the why anymore. They're not listening and they don't necessarily want to participate in the way that you want them to.
To clarify, the Colts had a rule that said you can't take a picture in a football room.
Right.
And I understand the reasoning behind it. I don't know the reasoning behind it, but I understand if you have a rule, enforce it. Right. That's fine.
At that point, you're taking that picture because you don't have respect for the rules anymore, which means that you're not bought in.
Well, how do you define a football room?
Simple as that.
How do you define a football room? Maybe because I think part of Pat McAfee's argument was this is an equipment room. I guess there's a football in there, makes it a football room, but
right. But it's a room that's designed for the function of bettering or helping or participating for the football team. So that's considered a football room.
It's minutia, and so I guess you could say he knew what he was doing was technically breaking a rule.
Right, and there's a bunch of ways you could go about it. Well, technically this, technically that. But to me, it's happening, and he's taking that picture because he decided that he just doesn't care.
Yeah.
And it's not that he's a bad guy or he doesn't care. It's just obviously the culture wasn't enforced on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Or the culture, didn't exist or it was a culture that they didn't respect and things like that. So
100% they didn't respect it.
When that comes to the deal and then your general manager comes to you and says, this is why we're losing games. It's, not just because the punter's not bought in.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's players, veterans, rookies, everybody not buying into whatever system that is. It's like I said before, if everybody's bought in and it's the wrong thing, it doesn't matter. You're going to find more success than a few people believing your veterans not, a couple of them do, and it's just a mixed thing because then that also creates a rift between the players.
Yeah.
And once you have a rift between the players now, you're really struggling, and that's when you lose the locker room, is when you have a locker room that's divided.
I've heard people talk about coaches that they don't believe. I've heard people say this ex-coach is a bad coach, but we like him as a person. How does that happen? I don't understand that. Like they'll say in meetings, this guy's really funny, but we hate his staff. We don't like his analysis of our play, and we don't like the way he coaches us. How can that be that people can like the guy but not like him as a coach? Is that a real thing?
I think that's a very real thing. I mean, you can have a very, very funny coach or a coach that you relate with on a personal level.
Yeah.
But are they teaching you football? Are they executing their job?
Yeah.
And are they expecting you to execute your job as well?
Yeah.
Because coaching and being a player is a two-way street. They're going to give you a scheme. It's your job to execute it, right?
Yeah.
And it's their job to evaluate you and understand what your limitations are, what you're best at, and then create a scheme that's going to mesh. So if they want to put their scheme in and like, we're doing this, no questions asked. This is how we have to do it. There's no other way around it. When you don't necessarily maybe have players who are capable of doing that, or they have strengths in other ways, now you're looking as a player like, okay, but, that's not my strength. Could we, try and do this, maybe play off like I'm really good at running this route, or we block, this run game very well.
Yeah.
So, like, can we do that? No. Like, we're running it this way. Has to be done this way. You guys need to learn that.
Well, coaching's not one size fit all. Right?
No, not at all.
A good coach looks at what are my, like Sean McVay does this with the Rams. What are my guys really good at? How do I get them the most out of them?
Exactly.
And they change the offense to fit the players rather than saying, here's our offense, learn our offense, you better be able to do it.
Exactly.
And that's with the way NFL's changed. That's why young quarterbacks are more successful now in the NFL, because coaches are finding ways, like with Bill O'Brien and Deshaun Watson. So Deshaun Watson has this great skill set. I'm not going to make him run the same offense as Tom Brady. No. That'd be a waste. You have a lot of talent that you don't want to lose.
Exactly.
And waste, basically. I think it's interesting. You look at the Steelers. This is the last thing I want to say about Colts. I didn't mean to talk this long, but I think it's a fascinating discussion. The Patriots have made it to the Super Bowl again. I mean, this is their ninth. I think it's their eighth time with Tom Brady.
Even tell you.
It's ridiculous the history they've been. And you look at a team like the Patriots, who are not as talented, and the Steelers, who are far more talented but don't have the same level of success as the Patriots in recent years. And I think it's interesting. There's a clear distinction and difference in culture between the Steelers and the Patriots.
Right.
But we saw this offseason, the Patriots had a bunch of turmoil, and people said they lost locker room notables in Belichick. And I never bought it. And I think the truth was the veterans always believed in Belichick because they knew why they were doing what they were doing.
Exactly, because you win.
Yeah. We're here to win a Super Bowl. We're here to do this and get to this game.
We're not. You're not in the NFL. NFL is a business. You're not there to have fun. You're not there to go hang out with your boys in the dorm room.
Yeah.
Stay up until 2 a.m. Oh, now we got 6:30 workouts. We're gonna drag through it and have a good time, laughing with each other, scraping by, paying rent, kind of deal. The NFL is a business.
Yeah.
And you talk about one of those players like Chad Johnson when he went to the Patriots. He has an interview on it where he just talks about it is different when you walk into a Patriots facility. The expectation is set. It's demanded of you. And if you don't execute, you're out. And they have no problem removing somebody who doesn't want to be a part of their culture.
I think the fact the Patriots got to the Super Bowl this year is remarkable. I mean, remember all the problems they had? No, hold on. They had all these problems. The media kept pushing a lot of stuff. They brought in Josh Gordon. He didn't work. They lost their great left tackle. There were all these things that went wrong on paper for the Patriots, and they still overcame it.
Right.
That's culture. That's the power of having a great system in place where players understand why, and other players can step up and fill the roles of a great left tackle that leaves, or another wide receiver who retires, or Rob Gronkowski slows down, next man up.
Exactly. And it's the next man up mentality in addition to demanding, everything out of every single player. And it's not just your starters that you're looking to at practice. It's your backups. It's your third strings. It's your guys on the practice squad. So in the event that somebody does go down, you've got somebody to replace. And, of course, there's going to be a drop-off. There's a reason the guy was a starter for a reason.
Yeah.
But when you have somebody who can step in and at the bare minimum can execute what you're supposed to do, he may not be as talented, but if he can execute, then you're going to be in good shape.
Oh, I hate doing this. It makes me feel uncomfortable. I really don't like self-promotion. It makes me feel like a used car salesman, but I got to do it. So if you don't know, this is my podcast, Strong Opinion Sports. It's my favorite thing in the world. And you can subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud. You can find it on YouTube. You can find the full entire hour-long podcast on YouTube. You can also find shorter breakout clips like the one you just watched. Please do me a favor. If you like anything I had to say, maybe you hate me and you're mad about something, share this podcast with your friends. Share it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever you want to do. Help me grow by telling your friends about this show.